the Lingdocs Pashto dictionary contains an inflection and phrase building engine. So that means it can take different words and put them together in phrases, and it shows how the words fit together and how they're changed depending on how they're used. So for instance, if we take the verb lidl and we look, and so here's our roots and stems for the verb, and we can see the traditional, conjugation charts for all the different forms of the verb, but we can also make phrases out of it. So we can you make noun phrases for your subject and for your object. So let's start with pronouns. Let's say I see you, object, you. So we have zeta like that. And if we do different tenses, we can see how it changes. So zeta is subjunctive, or I will see you, zibata like that. Now, we can also see a phrase structure analysis, and we can see the different parts of speech here. We can see this is a noun phrase, which is the subject. This is an object here, and this is our space for particles to go in the sentence. And we can either look at this with phonetics or with the actual Pashto script like that. And so we can see how this changes with different tenses. Right now, the subject is the king of the sentence. The subject is what's commanding the verb. But if we go over into the past tense, Pashto's famous for being ergative. Look at how things change. Mata wulidele. So now the object is the king of the sentence. So when we change the object, if I say I saw them, maha wulidel, like that, it's going to change according to the object. So we can see how these sentences really work, and the computer follows the basic rules of grammar and makes all these sentences properly. The other thing that's really cool about Pashto is you can see how the different lengths of the sentences can be used. So we can do things like we can remove the king of the sentence, remove the thing commanding the verb, so we can just say ma wulidele. Or we can also take the noun phrase that isn't commanding the verb, we'll call it the servant, and we can make that into an enclitic or a mini pronoun. We can say teme wulidele, like that. Or we can do both of those things and we can make it really short, like wumilidele. So, where in English sentence you can only say I saw you, in Pashto you can say ma te wulidele, you can say ma wulidele, or teme wulidele, or wumilidele. And this all changes if we add an adverb in here. If we say something like I saw you yesterday, parun ma te wulidele, parun ma wulidele, or parun me te wulidele, or parun me wulidele, all like that. So Pashto has so many different combinations, and you could use the perfect tense, and we could say parun ma te lidele, or if you say I haven't seen you yesterday, parun ma te nelidele, that kind of thing. There's just so, and then you can do that with all the different lengths. So there's just so many different combinations that can be used. But we can see how the computer follows a very basic logic, and people who are, linguists and learners can also get a real understanding of what that logic is, and then it's not so complicated and overwhelming anymore once we get the hang of it. And there's also other interesting things, like you can say, if I say let's say I saw a friend, let's say malgare, let's say simple past, so ma malgare wulidelo. But let's say whose friend? Let's say it's your friend. Then we can say it's your friend. Ma sta malgare wulidelo, like that. And we can see how in Pashto you can actually take the possessors and we can shrink them into enclitic pronouns like this. So we can say ma di malgare wulidelo. And if we shorten it, then it's gonna look different. We could say malgare mi de wulidelo. So I saw your friend, and now we've got these two enclitic pronouns. So there's all these cool different possibilities of lengthening and shortening, which are unique to Pashto, and we can explore them all with this verb engine here. And the cool thing is, now that we have this verb engine, this also we can use it for different things. So now in the Lingdocs Pashto grammar, we have all these explanations of how these things actually work. And now we have sentences that we can actually modify and change using the same verb engine. So for instance, there's an example sentence and it says, Mashum za wuhalam, the child hit me. Well, the reader here can go in and edit this sentence using the same verb, using the same phrase generation engine. So, mashum za wahlam. Now, the reader might say, well, what if the child is feminine? How does that change things? Mashumi za wahlam, like that. And then they can go ahead and shorten the different lengths. They could say ze wahlam or we wahlam, like that. Okay, what if it was multiple children that hit me? So then we could say mashumano za wahlam. Okay, well, what if we add an adjective to it? So let's say the sweet children. So chog, but then it changes to chwago mashumano za wahlam, like that. And if it's, let's say, if it's a singular, if it's one child, chwaga mashum za wahlam. Now, what if it's in the present tense? The sweet child is hitting me. Chog mashum ma wahi. Look at that. Look at how much it changes. Chog mashum ma wahi, or in past tense, chwaga mashum za wahlam. And we can see, if we look at the phrase structure here. Oops. Sorry. If we look at this phrase structure here, then we can see how this is all one thing that inflects chwaga mashum za wahlam. And then if we make it plural, then you can look at it. It says chwago mashumano za wahlam. Again, we can read that in the phonetics or in the Pashto script, like that. So this phrase engine ends up being very powerful because we can, make it say whatever we want and whatever questions we have about the language, in terms of how would this be said and how would this be said. We can see that we've got the grammatically correct rules here, because whatever sentence it builds, it's correct, and then we know that we're understanding the rules correctly, and that the computer is understanding the rules correctly.